Welcome, welcome. We're so thrilled that you've registered to come to one of our scholarly skills hosted by the Dean's Office in the Faculty of Grad Studies. I'm Cheryl Van Dalen Smith, Associate Dean Academic. Welcome on a nice spring Monday morning. There is a Q&A box I want you to locate during this webinar, and if you have questions, especially for our three alumni, that's really why you came, I know. We want you to put those questions into the Q&A, and I'll have a look at them when we turn to our alumni panel. At this moment, I know many of us are at different spots across the province, perhaps even across the country and internationally. And normally we would do this kind of a land acknowledgement just for York University. But in light of the fact that folks are in several different spots, I just invite everybody to take stock of where they are and of our shared commitments to Indigenous peoples across the globe. This is our agenda. So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of what's going to happen in this 1 hour. And I'm going to talk to you about what exactly is graduate supervision, even if you're currently being supervised. I'm going to say some things maybe you didn't know, or maybe you already knew. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what to expect from your supervisors, and also what are our responsibilities as grad students in grad supervision. And then we have a good half hour with three graduate student alumni who are going to talk to you about how to get the most from your graduate supervision experience. And I'll close with some key do's and don'ts and some support resources. And of course, as I say, I'll be looking in the Q&A for questions that you might have for our panelists. So what exactly is graduate supervision? It really is the center of grad studies. We call it the central pedagogy, pedagogy meaning an intentional series of steps taken to affect your learning through teaching. It's a complex pedagogical practice, and it is a partnership between an experienced and an aspiring scholar. And this relationship, this pedagogy shifts over time, over the years it takes for your research, scholarly, or creative work to be done. Your grad supervisor plays an important role as a mentor, academic mentor, who is meant to provide professional guidance, encourage your scholarship and research, hold the bar high, help you reach the bar, and to teach or connect you to the necessary skills in order to plan and conduct original research, scholarly work, or creative works. As I said, it involves intentionality. It's not winging it. Even though it feels informal, it often happens through conversation. Now it's happening more and more on Zoom. And when you compare it to traditional teaching and learning in classrooms, it feels even more informal. It involves attention to open communication between both of you and a willingness of both of you to learn and to unlearn and to be growth centered. It is a relationship. It's a professional relationship. It's a scholarly relationship, and it is interdependent. That means both parties play a pivotal role in the health of the supervisory relationship. And above all else, all of you, it is meant to be a space of growth, of collaboration, and of mutual respect for both parties. Although the grad student, that's you, bears the primary responsibility for your program's success and your intellectual growth, did you know that there's a whole bunch of other folks meant to wrap around you? The department, the program, the supervisor, the supervisory committee, and us, the Faculty of Grad Studies, are expected to foster the environment that is supportive of these two things. One, the inherent dignity and value of both the supervisor and the student, and two, the student's timely success through successful milestone completion. And supervision is central to this. And while you are partners, the supervisor is the senior partner. And both members of, we call this as a dyad, meaning two people, both members of that dyad have responsibilities and have rights. We like to frame this in what we call the graduate student life cycle. And you're thinking, what is that? Well, we think about you before you even come to York, and we think about you once you've left York and all the way through. So, from recruitment to admissions to orientation. And then here, this fourth block, you see the pink above it. This is really where the supervision happens when you're doing your, maybe a little after your coursework, when you're into your research or scholarly or creative work. There, we're thinking about professional development for you and comprehensives that you're doing, and then eventually your defense and all the good stuff along the way and all the stress along the way, of course. So this arrow is you. This is the grad student life cycle. And the folks we've come to talk to you today are way over at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth box. So that's kind of cool. So as I mentioned at the beginning, all of you, and I'll just call you my students today if I can have you be my students for an hour, I would love that. That supervision is central to your grad studies, and we call it the centrality, and that it's a pedagogy, as I said. Your courses, your supervisor, your supervisory committee, and your own intentional efforts collaborate all together in order to enable your growth and your success. That's our goal. And most grad students, not all, have a supervisor and a supervisory committee. It differs if you're in a master's or a doctorate. It differs if you're doing a thesis, a dissertation, or an MRP. It may differ a little bit depending on what large F faculty you're in, but generally, supervision, you have a supervisor and somewhat of a supervisory committee. We would like you to have your supervisory committee in place when you're a master's student by term 2 to 3, because it's a quicker program, and by term 4 to 5 for doctoral students. And your GPD will help you with this. Now, have a look here. This is a triad now, supervisor, student, and thesis. And this is the space in between these three where the teaching and the learning takes place, the place where everyone has a role. And how cool is this? Where the ultimate aim of a mutually respectful relationship that gives way to your development. It's all about you, but we need you as a big part of it. And of course, it's about rigor and standards and knowledge creation, your passion project. So supervisors have all kinds of roles, helping you grow intellectually in the journey, and keeping you on track is a key part of the role. This is why my students like to call me their snoopervisor, because I always touch base, say, how's it going? Where are we at? How can I help? Kind of thing, because I really want to keep them moving forward. So supervisor role, we really are here to keep you on track and to help keep you motivated. We're supposed to facilitate your intellectual growth. We're supposed to meet with you often to discuss and clarify, and sometimes even document mutually agreed upon expectations related to not only your research, but also even your career goals. Early on, we don't really necessarily talk about your career goals, but soon into it, we will begin to talk to you about that. We also are meant to assist you in developing and executing a reasonable schedule, right? So, and we do that through discussion with you. Both of us, you and me, are supposed to keep track of when things are due and sort of make plans, break it down into chunks so that you can accomplish it. And also, supervisors, if we're ever away, sometimes we have a sabbatical or maybe take a little holiday. We're supposed to make sure you're aware. And if we're away for an extended period of time, it is our responsibility to make sure somebody steps in for us so that you always have coverage. I want you to remember that. Often it's somebody else on the committee. We're also there as a mentor, mentoring you in all phases of your research endeavor, including developing your proposal where you think, I think I want to study this. This is how I'm going to study. This is when I'm going to study. This is with whom I'm going to study. That's what a proposal is. We also help flesh out how you're going to collect data, if that's part of it, how you're going to analyze, how you're going to interpret. This might be different for some of you in the arts, and that's okay too. We also are required to provide you with constructive, thorough, and timely feedback. And at York University, what that means is generally within 15 business days. So if you send us something, just before the holidays, then you can see that 15 business days would be later on. So it depends on when you send it in. I always like to talk it out with my students around what works for them so that I can get at their document or their work quickly. So 15 business days. But if you send them, for the first time, 400 pages, please don't do that. But for the first time, 400 pages, of course, it's going to take far longer than 15 days. It's good to work in chunks with your supervisor, chapter by chapter, even portion of chapter. Have them take a look, get some feedback. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about your responsibility about feedback as well. And I'll just say, you're supposed to want it. It's not easy to get it, but you're supposed to want it and supposed to take it in when you're ready. We're also supposed to work with you to provide a safe, inclusive, and healthy environment in our lab or in any kind of research spaces that we're working with. And also, if you're interested, helping link you to important information about policies and guidelines like ethics, awards, and for sure, supervisors meant to be aware of deadlines, and so are you. So we're supposed to do it together. Supervisors should also be versed in intellectual property, and York University Grad Studies has a new policy on that. And we have a nice sort of checklist for students and supervisors to work through about intellectual property. We're supposed to also help students navigate all the financials of grad studies, and luckily we have a team here in grad studies of advisors around funding where we can help, but the supervisor is also supposed to have some kind of an understanding. And also following university policy as well. So we're supposed to know about all the policies, the deadlines, when things are due, how things should look, together with you. And so it's a shared sort of understanding. So together with the GPD, the supervisor will strive to answer questions about aspects maybe not necessarily directly related to your MRP thesis, creative work, or dissertation, but we're supposed to sort of be aware of things. Supervisors also are meant to consider issues of equity and the differential individual circumstances of grad students in providing supervision. So, in other words, we're meant to be like a willow tree, bendy and foldy, versus an oak tree, where we supervise in one way, and this is the way I do it. We're meant to bend. That's a good educator bends. And this is why it's really important to talk through with your supervisor your learning style and the way you like to communicate and the way that you prefer getting feedback. Two of you talk that through. That's called expectations. And when it's transparent, we have less conflict and we sort of don't sit and stew sort of about something and worry about something if we've talked it out. Supervisors are also meant to provide support to the grad student around later on, perhaps writing letters of recommendation or writing letters for awards, those sorts of things. Supervisor also convenes meetings, so we pull together your supervisory committee. And eventually, as you sort of get older in your program, if you will, it's important that you call meetings with your supervisory committee and you chair those meetings. So first your supervisor can, but it's super good if you can sort of drive your program as well, set an agenda, take minutes, make sure everybody's on board with what was said. Because when you get 3 academics plus you in a room, there may be differences of opinion. So it's good to write stuff down. What you'll do with all of this is also a part of the conversation that you'll have. Just move something that's in the way here. So what you're going to do with your degree is also part of the conversation you're going to have. And that's sort of about, why are you in this? Where do you want to go with this? So do you know that you have a supervisory committee? And if you've not looked at PhD comics, have a look at those because they're pretty funny. This is one of them. So this is just a tongue-in-cheek kind of description of what your thesis committee is about. But all joking aside, your committee has roles too. They're not meant to just sort of hang out and not have a say or not really take your work seriously until the comprehensive exam, and then have a bunch of things to say that you wish you knew ahead of time and you could have addressed ahead of time. That's not good committee membership role. All members of your committee are meant to facilitate your intellectual growth and help you contribute to a field of knowledge. They're meant to bring either their methodological expertise, their content expertise, or their disciplinary expertise. And that's why you have three generally. Excuse me. They're also supposed to assist and support the supervisor in providing guidance, consultation, and advice on your work. They're meant to meet with the grad student as a committee together. And also, did you know that you're supposed to meet with them one-to-one? So if you didn't know that, that would be a good thing for you to start scheduling. And like everybody else, excuse me, they're meant to provide timely feedback on the thesis proposal or chapters or a piece of musical score or some of your artwork, etc. And once mutually agreed expectations for feedback has been developed, right? So say you said, when you give me feedback and it's all in capital letters, it feels like you're yelling, sort of thing. So hopefully, you've had that discussion around how you like to have feedback, or someone else saying, when you put everything in red, all I see is red, and it's very triggering to me, kind of thing. So once you've all talked about how you like to get feedback, and how they like to give you feedback, then they're supposed to do that. For me, the way my students sort of like it is we have a conversation in the margin of a document and we talk back to each other in the document. We also now have a shared drive, which they asked me to do last year, which was kind of cool. And so we can edit things together live on a shared document, through OneDrive or SharePoint or whatever works. Some people like Google Drive. So that's a lot. I'm going to give you a link actually to the official document that says what are the responsibilities of the committee, excuse me, what are the responsibilities of the supervisor, what are the responsibilities of the program, and now I'm going to talk about student responsibilities. And you might think, oh, they're telling me my responsibilities. But the reason I want you to know them is because this is how you can get the most out of grad supervision, by enacting these responsibilities, by taking your program in your two hands and driving it. And I know our alumni are going to be talking to you about the ways in which they got the most out of their grad supervisory relationship. So for sure, you're the captain. Although my students tell me that I'm the captain and no, they're the captain, I'm the navigator, something like that. But it's a shared responsibility. Basically, we want you to increasingly drive this. So you need to learn about and adhere to policies and guidelines and deadlines. You can't say I didn't know. So if there's orientations, go. If there's a handbook in your program, get it. If you don't understand something, ask your GPD. And by the way, your GPA is a wealth of knowledge. So please reach out to the GPA. And I'll also say, all those pesky emails that come in from your program, read them. If you don't feel like reading them on a Tuesday, say, I'll read all the emails from my program every Friday, because there's a lot of information in there, like awards and scholarships and stuff that you'll miss otherwise. Also, realize that your research project must be in scope with your approved program. So, sorry, you make a decision with your committee what you're going to study, what's your area of passion. And generally, if you want to change it, it has to be navigated and negotiated with the program, making sure it's within the scope. And as I say, you're selecting a topic of research or your scholarly work or your creative work in collaboration with your supervisor. And they want to make sure that there's adequate resources that are available. Students should keep a record of their research, be fully accountable for demonstrating the authenticity of your work, and produce a project or thesis that is your work. If you like, later on, we can talk about artificial intelligence and some of my cautions around that, but I'm going to keep going for now. Recognize that the supervisor and the supervisory committee have other stuff going on. And for sure, you're important to us. Definitely. We've said yes to supervise you because we really are so excited about your work. But just know that sometimes we have conferences, we have families, we have our own research, we have teaching and service obligations. And so just sort of talking it through around when's it a good time for us to meet, when's it a good time for me to send you my work, and that way we can be our very best for you. And do your best to maintain progress. Keep yourself moving forward. I really want to caution all of you, try and not rely on petitioning for more time. It's so stressful on students. There's financial concerns about it. The goal is to get you through and that you finish and can move on to that next part of your wonderful life. So I really want to implore to all of you that keeping yourself moving forward, even on weeks you don't feel like working, just try to do something little. My students will play with their table of contents, and that way they're thinking, even though they don't feel like reading. Okay, other responsibilities for students in grad supervision include acting in the spirit of collegiality with your supervisor, your supervisory committee, professors, departmental administrators, and your other grad students. So, grad studies is big time now. And so we're wanting everybody to be colleagues, and that means be collegial. What that also means is sometimes conflict bubbles up, doesn't it? And it's so important to try and not let it fester. It's not easy. Nobody likes conflict. I don't like conflict. Maybe you don't like conflict. But if you can with your supervisor, if something's troubling you, try and say, you know what, Cheryl, I need to talk to you about feedback on page 6. Can we meet and talk about the feedback you gave me on page 6? And then we do. And then people can breathe. Next one, number 8, that feedback thing I was telling you about. So you get feedback and you think, oh my God, there's so much feedback. I'm the worst. How did they ever let me into grad school? Might be your response. Or you might think, what, how can anybody give me all this feedback? Don't they know that how smart I am? Sort of thing. And so I always say, when you get the feedback, glance, and if it's giving you a reaction, maybe put it away for a day, respond and say, thank you very much. Just want you to know I've received this and I'll be reviewing it in the next few days. Give yourself some time to breathe. Then have a look at the feedback. And I want you to consider it. Consider it and respond to constructive feedback from the supervisor and supervisory committee. If feedback is contradictory, say supervisor said, let's go this way, and perhaps a committee member said, go that way, then that's a convo you have with your supervisor, and together you make a decision. And the supervisor goes back to the other committee member and says, you know what, Cheryl, thanks for that, but if it's okay, we're going to do this kind of analysis, and this is the reason why. You're also really required to meet and communicate regularly with your supervisor. And so please don't ghost us. In other words, don't go away. If you're feeling down, if you're not feeling like working, I'd want to know. If you feel you've got nothing new to tell me, I still want to meet with you because it keeps you moving forward. It's always a good idea to check in, be present. And then if you're asked to attend to administrative responsibilities, do so in a timely manner. Otherwise, they natter away at you and they become something that's just so late, and then you get more stressed. So, say, for example, the academic integrity module that everybody has to do when they begin their program now. Putting it off, then you get a little note on your system and it's so stressful. So it's sort of better to go, oh, I got to take care of that. Let me put it on my to-do list. Or if you're like me, I have a whiteboard and I keep track of things there because I forget. Now, once in a while, you might need to change your supervisor. I'm hoping it's only because the nature or focus of your topic has shifted, or maybe someone had an illness or whatever, but sometimes it's conflict. And I would hope that you could try first to have the sort of mature, transparent, hard to have conversation before you have to go through the hoops of switching a supervisor. It's not that you can't switch, It's just hard to switch. It's hard on you, it's hard on the supervisor, hard on the program, but it's doable. And if you're going to be away, let us know. And especially if there's extended periods of absence or other factors that might get in the way of you progressing, just let us know. And together we can sort of take a look at our timeline and keep mapping it. It should be fluid anyway. But it's just good to stay in touch, be present, and just have conversations with each other, be accountable to each other. A few others. Um, Self-advocate. So, how do you like to have feedback? Do you want to have more meetings with your supervisor and say, talk about career ideas? Do you wish you knew more about awards? Do you want to talk with us about that? Are you feeling fuzzy about a research methodology and you just don't remember because you took your course 3 years ago? Advocate for yourself and say, can we meet? I'd love to talk about X. Um, Also, it's important that your program and your supervisor knows any funding that you have. And finally, I think it's finally, um, if you have any conflict of interest with a committee member or anybody involved in your grad supervision, eventually when you have your comprehensive exam, people that are being tossed out as potential ideas, if you have a conflict of interest with them, which we have a definition for, don't you worry about that right now, is just to disclose that. Open communication is welcomed. It's not easy, but it's really welcomed. And if you look at this diagram here over on the left, are grad supervisor responsibilities. So saying providing guidance, be sensitive to unique needs, be accessible, respond in a constructive and timely manner and thorough manner, ensuring safety, advising on career options and opportunities, and over on your side, meeting deadlines, following regulations, working with your supervisor to identify barriers, what's getting in the way of you progressing, providing evidence of your progress, all the things I've mentioned. But look in the middle. That's where we share responsibilities. So if I was lucky enough to be your supervisor, both of us would have to communicate regularly. Both of us have to discuss each other's roles, each other's responsibilities, and our expectations, kind of thing. To prepare a research plan, to be informed on policies, to make use of services at York, and really a super important one is to foster mutual respect, that both parties matter and both have lives. And while it's all about you and getting you through, your supervisor also matters. So we're going to move to our students. I'm just going to introduce them, and then everybody, I'm going to stop sharing screen. And then I have a series of questions that I get to ask our alumni. So our first alumni, I'm just going to introduce everybody, and then I will stop sharing. So we first have Dr. Ramesh, who was York's first PhD graduate in the graduate program in nursing. And Dr. Ramesh is an internationally educated nurse, currently is a professor at York University School of Nursing, yay for us, and is the coordinator of the Internationally Educated Nurses Program. We also have I get to welcome is that CN Marks. CN is currently a research associate and coordinator at York, specializing in neuroscience and psychology. She completed recently her MA in psychology, and just because she had spare time, she decided to do a graduate diploma in neuroscience here at York. And she's super passionate about advancing mental health through data-driven research and taking interdisciplinary approaches. And finally, our third panelist is Dr. Salman Chaudhry, who recently earned his PhD in Earth and Space Science from here at York, where he navigated not one, but two grad programs here, both having grad supervision. And so, drawing from his own experience, he offers practical insights into building productive supervisor-student relationships. And he's going to talk to us about taking ownership of the grad journey. Okay, so we'll stop sharing there. And thanks. And I see everybody is highlighted, spotlighted. So I'm going to start with Ramesh if I can. Ramesh, when agreeing to join this graduate supervision panel as an alumni, you likely had certain areas you wanted to share. From your experience, what are a couple of ways that students, what they can do to get the most from supervision?
Thank you very much, Cheryl, for that question. And hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Um, Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Cheryl. So, as far as I'm concerned, when I started with the PhD program at York University, I had lot of fears and a lot of hopes, right? When I started navigating, I wanted to know, like as Cheryl mentioned in a presentation, I knew the relationship is intentional, it is professional, and it is based on mutual respect. So the first meeting I remember I had with my supervisor, and I was telling her all about my fears. And then she made me feel at ease. And then we started moving on. So that was the first thing. So I had established open communication. I expressed all my vulnerabilities to the supervisor. I had a wonderful supervisor who understood the vulnerabilities and said, yes, okay, now let's focus on the strengths and let's work on the vulnerabilities and then convert them into strengths as much as possible. So that was the other aspect. And then uh, when communicating with my supervisor, I knew that we had to actually have a clear expectations at the beginning. So I used to write a big email, and I used to get a reply which was very short reply, yes or no, yes or no. But that's all I needed, and I knew the style of the supervisor, and I started adapting to that style. So you need to be professional. You need to clearly outline the expectations and understand the communication styles of each other and continue to trust that other person, and then it's a mutual relationship. That's it. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Sian, how about you? When you agreed, when I voluntold you, no, you agreed. What are your insights about getting the most from supervision?
Yeah, so I kind of have some of the same sentiments that you and Ramesh stated earlier, and most of them are along the lines of communication. And that for me was probably the most important thing, and the thing that I wanted to make sure going into grad studies that I had solidified and an agreement kind of straightened out between my supervisor and I. But in terms of, for me, one of the main things I think students can get out of their graduate supervision experience is understanding um, the relationship that your supervisor plays. So, kind of like you stated earlier, that while this is also an academic relationship, it's also a professional one, and they have the ability to help navigate you through that. I think that's one thing that I realized later on is that they have the ability to help you in terms of networking events, conferences, even just introducing you to their own contacts if they're willing to do so.
Hmm.
And that's really important that I feel like you can kind of capitalize on as early as possible because it really helps. A lot of times people can go into grad school not necessarily even knowing what they want to do career-wise after, and your supervisor is a really great resource for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And Salman, how about you?
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
When you asked me to be a part of this, and I thought about how can one make the most out of their experience being a graduate student, what I'd like to stress the most on is to start with the correct mental model. And I would like to stress on the few words that you said in the beginning is that this is a partnership. So before in previous studies, we were as an undergraduate students, think of it like sitting in a go bus taking you from destination A to destination B. But what I felt different in graduate study is it's a partnership and it's a self-directed partnership. So you are traveling on 401 with the right guidance, and as you said, the right navigation and the right support. And it is for you to plan your journey and to see when you need to take a break and how to proactively reach out to get that right support from your supervisors and the support that the school has set out for us. So I think it really we in order to get the most out of this experience, we really need to set our mental model to have ourselves in the driving seat
Mm.
as compared to somebody else telling us what to do. And I guess if we create that mental model in the beginning, it kind of avoids a lot of confusion because as a student you figure out all the necessities of the journey in the beginning. And also with respect to the clear communication that you get from your supervisor and proactively getting feedback to that, just to make sure you're on the right path. And yes, I cannot stress more enough on being proactive in getting feedback. I guess that sums up my response to this.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. I hope everybody's taking some notes. And just as a reminder to our students that are here, it looks like about 60 students, which is terrific. This will be recorded, and so you can fast forward past me and get to the panelists when you like another time. Okay, Ramesh, back to you. What are the ways that you enacted your responsibilities in this supervisory relationship? And specifically, how did you drive your degree, take ownership, take initiative, or address expectations?
This is a wonderful question. To answer this question, I want to just give you a little bit of background of where I'm coming from. I come from a Southeast Asian culture where, we look forward to the teacher as a kind of somebody who's above in the higher pedestal who will be telling us what to do. That kind of a relationship. That is the usual relationship with the teacher and the student. So when I came into the graduate program, I realized that the teacher is not standing at a higher pedestal. She's trying to come down to my level and she's placing me at her level and giving me the academic freedom and telling me, okay, it is your research. It's your passion that with which you've come in. I don't want to spoil it. Tell me what you want to do. I'm here to facilitate the journey. That was little, at the beginning, it was a challenge for me to navigate. Then I started navigating and then I started getting into my research. And then every time when I talk about my research, I was talking very, very passionately. And I'm sure you remember that it happened in our doctoral seminar also. Cheryl was our doctoral seminar professor, and I was able to articulate that in that seminar. It's because of the freedom that I had. It is because of instilling the thought that this is my journey and this is my thesis. Yes, I have to take ownership. Then I started taking more responsibility. So with freedom always comes responsibility. So the more freedom that was given to me to navigate and to figure out what I want to do with my PhD, I had the responsibility added to it. So I had to make sure that whatever I want to do, it is very clear. It could be understood by both myself and the supervisor in the same way I want it to be understood, and then ask for help that is required. So taking responsibility, in the midst of a lot of freedom, and then making sure that we have clear goals that is mutually agreed upon, and ask for help when needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Sian, you've just recently done a master's, and so is it different for you how you drove this, and how did you respond to this question? How you drove your degree, took ownership, took initiative, address expectations?
I think a lot of it was pretty similar. And the main thing, the kind of the similarity that Ramesh was speaking about that I had with my experience and that, I would suggest, is that to set clear expectations at the beginning, I think helps avoid a lot of potential conflicts if they were to arise. So luckily within the psych department, it's a requirement that all grad students have to sit down with their supervisor at the beginning of their studies and complete a form. So this was a really big help in getting that discussion started about a whole list of different areas in terms of publication, modes of communication, different areas. And I think that was really important because I was able to outline or express the things that I wanted to get on my grad studies, as well as what my supervisor wanted from me. So it was really, I think, necessary. And it also helps get the kind of remove the guessing from the situation. Sometimes when you don't have these clear expectations, sure their party things up front, like how often we were going to meet, what kind of feedback was preferred, even how we were to handle disagreements if they were to arise, and it made things much clearer. And I think that if your department doesn't require this, I think it's really important, especially at the beginning, maybe within the first few weeks of starting your program. But how I was able to drive my degree, I made goals for myself each semester, even if it wasn't something that my supervisor and I had discussed to kind of keep things going in terms of, my academic development, what I wanted for myself and my professional development. And it also helped if there weren't any other things to discuss on the research or academic side, because I think your supervisor just wants to know that something's moving forward. It doesn't necessarily always have to be research based. So whether it's professional development and I wanted to attend a conference or things like that. And I also tried to be proactive and be prepared with any type of notes when I went to meetings. I think that was important because a lot of times I would forget going into meetings, and then these things couldn't be addressed until a later date, and that kind of would push things further along. So that for me, I think were my sentiments for this question.
Yeah. Awesome. I love the proactivity. I love the taking notes. We actually have a template for an agenda for your supervision meetings if you all like. I'll put a link soon. And also how to take minutes and sort of how to store it. So super excellent. Salman, what can you add to this discussion about how you enacted your student responsibilities?
So my actions arose because I took initiative by taking this relationship as a partnership, and I would like to stress upon that point again. And having and going through this partnership with honesty, um, and by doing that, what I mean to say is have giving as much um, emphasis or as much effort in making your supervisor understand you, and giving that same amount of emphasis and effort for you to understand your supervisor. Because then again, I say it's a partnership. And how I enacted my responsibilities in order to carry out this partnership is by having frequent visits, weekly progress reports that I think was instrumental in my journey as a graduate student, having to-do list. Then few of the things I can recall is taking notes. That was really helpful. And one of the things that I found that I had to deal with again and again was change of in plans. I had a research plan that worked out or not worked out, and we had a lot of plans going on around my research, and not all of them do become the part of your research. And it's really important to understand that this is a research and there is no set path to it. And how we can reduce the noise around the research is what I felt was really important and helpful for me was to be proactive in communicating what's needed to be done for your thesis. And an example for that is in the first few months, I sat down with my supervisor, and one of the very few first thing I remember myself doing was actually creating a table of contents for my thesis. And I knew this was something I had to do at the very end. And I wanted to drive my journey towards that, and how I could always take a step back in between my journey and kind of calibrate my efforts towards going towards that end goal. And I think that really helped me down. I know that my plans changed, and with time, my research and probably my table of contents evolved too, but that really helped me ground to what needed to be done. Another thing is I remember myself having monthly and semester-wise to-do list with my supervisor. And that was not really for him to tell me what to do, but that was for me to keep myself on track, and also to remind him or my supervisor of
Sure.
what he needs to be, or what my supervisor needs to put focus on for my research. And I think that were some of the actions that really helped me pull through this journey.
Fantastic. I'm going to move on. I may not hit all three of you for each question, so you'll see me maybe pivot around a tiny bit. I have answered some of the questions, students, in the Q&A. I'll continue looking in there. I'm the one responding, just so you know. It's coming from the Associate Dean. And I also put a link I want everybody to take and grab for later that has a bunch of really great resources in there. For example, how to have a difficult conversation. I'll actually give you the direct link right there. And I'm also going to give you a direct link to a checklist for things you should be talking through with your supervisor. Okay. Supervision, as I was mentioning, is a mutual relationship. It's grounded in mentoring and grounded in dignity, of course. I wonder, Ramesh, if you can speak to what skills did you need to foster a healthy supervisory working relationship with your supervisor and committee?
Thank you. First of all, supervisor is a professional in the same field that I'm having my PhD journey. And she is an accomplished professional. And that admiration was the first thing that made me trust whatever that person was saying. And then we moved on identifying, okay, what were the common goals and how do we ensure that both of us benefit from each other in this mutual relationship. I look forward to help not only in the professional journey, but I also look forward to her help and guidance in several aspects of my life in terms of, okay, I'm new to this country. I'm figuring out what my career path would be if I continue and complete my PhD. Where will I have, like, what kind of job will I be, like those kind of things. And I was able to actually freely talk to her. So it's built on trust and open communication. I trust this professional because she's an accomplished professional. So that admiration is there, and then open communication that nurtured the relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Sian?
I think that there are a few skills that come to mind in terms of fostering a healthy relationship. First, especially is communication. So that was definitely key, not just speaking often, and keeping your supervisor and committee updated about your progress, but also being very clear in what you're communicating and honest, I think is important as well. And with that, learning the communication of timing, and how that matters. So, if there's an abstract that's due tomorrow, you're not bringing up a significant change that's to be done today, or, bringing up big issues that are arising, 2 minutes before a meeting is finished. Those types of things, I think, is appreciated on their end, especially. And for me, one thing that I try to do especially is because, as grad students, we become very busy and our schedules are ever changing, and making sure I follow through was another key skill, I guess I could say, that I tried to implement. So for example, if something was due, or I said I would send something to the committee by Friday and I really wasn't able to do that, really just making sure that, I feel like they would understand, given that it's not a hard deadline, just trying to communicate that to them, because I think that's generally appreciated much more than not communicating that. And then also tying back into a point that Salman was speaking about often, is making sure to communicate proactively. So instead of waiting until, I was potentially panicking about something, part of a project was taking longer, a part of the research methods needs to be changed, making sure that I'm coming to my supervisor and committee before they have to come to me and ask what's happening or what the status is of things. So those are the skills that I would
Yeah.
suggest.
And that last one doesn't always feel good, my students tell me. If we're saying, hey, how's the proposal coming along, sort of thing. I certainly would be saying it out of caring, but it doesn't always necessarily land that way. So you being the one going, I know my proposal, here's where I'm at. And yeah, I love the open communication. Salman, I'm going to take you to the next question for you and I. Okay. Just I'm watching our time. How did you navigate differences of opinion, differing viewpoints, or different styles?
When encountering situations where I find difference of opinion, I take a step back and try to reconciliate and find probably the middle ground. But before that, I really try and emphasize to understand the other side perspective, because in the end, I understand that we are all in the same team, and they are suggesting improvements in my work that I may have overlooked, or it may be any other issue. But when we really take a step back and we dig down on what the actual problem is, Sometimes the actual problem is not the other person saying those words to you, but the actual problem is something that will be affecting you in the future. And if we listen really closely, we can find cues to the actual weaknesses or the actual things that we should really be working on. And I guess in the differences of opinion is where I really found my strength, and I really found it, and I really developed those differences into my strength. And I can give you examples for that, but I know that the time is we're short on time. But just to give you an idea, the differences of opinion on my yearly rec exams was the main motivator and it ended up in something, one of the most unique points of my research. So it's not really a step back, but just taking a step aside, thinking, and then going forward with that and trying to get to the middle ground, what works for both of the parties.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is that there was a difference of opinion, but that seemingly rogue difference of opinion ended in something positive, maybe?
Yes, yes,
Something
yes,
unique.
and
Yeah.
yes, something unique, because the difference in opinion in how I apply my research and the challenges of my research was actually the strength of my research, and I kind of figured that out when I was pounded by difficult questions on something that I believed had a different opinion on. But when I really took a step back, we found the middle ground. We pulled through it. We found a new solution, which really gave a very unique perspective to my research. And I'm really happy that we went through that. So I guess it's really not a part of facing criticism or facing backlash, but it's really a chance for you to ponder over the improvements and how we can add value to our work. And I guess, again, I would like to stress that this is not an examination, but this is a partnership, right? In an honest partnership, we'd be providing feedback where it's needed and where it's important. And both the parties, I believe, should be receiving feedback in the same way, the
Mhm.
same spirit.
Yeah, I love the idea too that supervisors and committee members should also be getting feedback around how's it going?
Yeah.
How is my supervision going? What could I do differently? What's working for you? I ask that question to my students and they're dead quiet. So I don't know if they feel safe enough yet to sort of say, don't text me at 7 in the morning. I don't, but
Mhm.
yeah, thank you for that. And what I hear in you, Salman, is around differences of opinion. They do sometimes happen between student and committee, but sometimes they happen on the committee. I don't know, Ramesh, if you have a quick 30-second reflection on that about any differences of opinion and how you navigated it.
When I started, I came with an idea of doing a randomized controlled trial. I was having a plan of doing a kind of a research that would go for 6, 7 years. I did not realize, because of the passion that I was coming, I was presenting this all the time to the committee, and the committee was kind of saying, okay, we don't want to discourage him, but we want to let him know it's practically not possible to do this. So they were trying to actually discuss with each other and then try to tell me. So then it took some time for me to actually understand the perspective. They're all wise people. They've had experiences in navigating the entire system and guiding students. So it took some time for me to understand that. So I would suggest everyone go with an open mind. Be
Yeah.
open to the suggestions that come from the supervisor and the committee.
Yeah, I was listening to a doctoral workshop on the weekend, and it was talking about developing a growth mindset or coming into supervision with a growth mindset versus, oh my God, they hate me, they think I'm stupid, or they're trying to like dismantle my vision. Um, all those feelings happen. I want to ask this fun question that we've all been looking forward to, and that is, and that's I'm going to ask of everyone. I'm going to start with Cian, and that is, what do you wish you knew then that you now know about grad studies and grad supervision itself?
So for the interest of time, I'll just keep it at that one quick point. But I think that the main thing that I wish I knew going into grad studies, and getting out of grad supervision is that it's not only okay, but I think smart to build a mentorship circle that extends beyond your supervisor. And I went in with the mindset for most of my grad studies that, your supervisor was your main mentor. But I think it's also important to within the department, within the faculty, there are a lot of great academics, whether that's within your lab or postdocs, other professors, and just kind of broadening that circle that you have around you because I think it can really help your experience. And I think it also provides a lot of different perspectives that can help along your academic and your professional journey as well.
Yeah. Okay. Salman, what do you wish that you knew then that you now know about supervision?
Um, it's okay to feel lost sometimes. And if I knew that at the start, I would have had a relatively more comfortable journey.
Mm.
Because this is a part of the journey to feel lost and to feel confused and not knowing what to do. And believe me, those are the times that build you, because those are the times that progress you to from one part of your journey to the next. And I cannot stress the importance of communicating that with your supervisor. If sometimes just talking about it makes it much easier and opens up your mind to new ideas. So whenever you feel lost in your PhD research or your supervisory experience, don't panic. I believe that's a part of the process.
Mm. It really is feeling lost, yeah. And feeling euphoric all of a sudden too, like I've got it. I've got something.
Yeah.
Mesh, how about you? Something you wish you knew then?
Yeah. Aligning your academic work with career goals is important. So when you're starting with your PhD journey, make sure that you have, planned out your PhD pathway, thinking of a long-term vision in terms of your career. So that's important.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
can't, I'm just looking at the time. We could go on for another hour, really, and listen to these very smart alumni. But I asked them specifically as a closing question, everybody, is a do or a don't, a do and a don't, or two do's and two don'ts. Because the students have come because they want to get the most out of their grad supervisory experience. So, do you have some do's and don'ts? I'll start with Salman.
So definitely a do that. I also wanted to add that to the previous question, but always focus on your personal life. That's mostly you have to do that. Don't forget your personal life and your personal relationships during your graduate studies, because that are a part of your overall life happiness. And having a good personal life will ensure a happy journey through this supervisory experience. And also the thing sometimes the last thing I do is to always put focus where it's needed. So for example, your research proposals, your yearly rec examinations, I put a lot of focus on those. And believe me, in my last year, those were because it's a progression of work built upon what you've done before. If if the foundation is correctly built upon, the years that are coming after that will be much seamless and easy, and easier to navigate.
Mm.
Two of the don'ts is that don't assume if there's non-activity or long periods of silence between your supervisor. Don't think that everything is okay. Just make sure that you're communicating on regularly. Sometimes people get busy, and to make sure if you get busy, if your supervisor is busy, make sure that you are going forward with your plan as planned. And lastly, don't treat your supervisor as a teacher, but treat them as a partner. And I think if that's done, we can have a long-lasting, fruitful relationship.
Yeah, thank you. Asian, a do and a don't.
So one of the do's that I had was to do talk about the goals that you have outside of your thesis. I think that's really important to kind of set that up, because there's a lot of things that if you discuss early, you're able to, especially career-wise, you can, implement these things during your graduate studies. So whether it's if you want to teach a course or certain publications, or if you want to go into industry, whatever that is, just make sure you're able to discuss your goals. I think that's important. And for a don't, I think the main one that I have is don't be afraid to expectations if they're not really working out. And hopefully that's able to be done in, an environment or a forum that's, comfortable for both the supervisor and the student. But I think that's really important. Don't just not necessarily suffer in silence, but if there's something that needs to be discussed, make sure that you have that discussion. I think that would be appreciated from your supervisor as well.
Yeah. Good. And Ramesh, do's and don'ts.
Yes, people often say graduate journey is a lonely journey. So please develop peer networks when you come in. There are other graduate students in different programs. So make sure that you have somebody to talk to. When you feel down, you can phone a friend and ask them, okay, how do I navigate this? So they may not be the specialists in that particular program, but they may be, knowing the graduate program ways. Don't wait too long to ask for help. That will be the don't. So if you need help, please ask early. Thank you.
Beautiful. We are at time. There's so many more. There's lots of stuff in the chat that I've gotten to. I will, with my support person Debbie's help, I'll send a thank you out. I hope we can, to registered guests, and the link that I've put into the chat, because not all people could sort of access that. And the basis on which the slides were developed, I'll be sending you that document. So on behalf of the Faculty of Grad Studies, on behalf of Ramesh and Sian and Salman, thank you to all the students who's attended today. A special thanks to my panel of alumni, very successful alumni. You are leaders, and thank you for paying it forward. And with that, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time at another Scholarly Skills. Bye for now.